Dawson's Rentals.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Writer here. This is going to be my review for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 101. Comic has combined back into one story, no longer just Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers. I'm not sure when and in what capacity we'll touch on the Omegas, but I imagine they'll be there at some point. But this is effectively the start of a new era, the new era of a new story runner and a new writer with Melissa Flores, and it kind of starts the table off for new stories. As for the issue itself, I honestly really enjoyed it. I think it was a really solid and enjoyable start to this new era. I have some mixed thoughts on some things, but for the most part, I'm really excited about this new era. You begin with a flashback about Rita and Zordon. It's not necessarily new information, we're effectively just seeing how it all went down when they mutually trapped each other. I've seen some people complain about the series doing too many flashbacks and fleshing out of things. Personally, something I never minded considering the show is lacking a lot of depth and backstory and I like actually getting it. And so I don't mind that. This one, again, it doesn't really give us any new information. It just basically shows us exactly what happened visually. But I think it was more so meant to be for storyline purposes, as this next arc is going to be focusing on Rita, and it sort of table sets some of the dynamics for it. So it makes sense. Like, very many stories like this will open up on a flashback that will contextualize what's going to be some sort of core conflict or theme. After that, we focused a lot on the Rangers sort of training together, all 7 of them, as Matt has now joined the team. I haven't had my muffin yet, Matt! Bombshell announcement, guys. I'm not Matt. You're the Green Ranger. You're the Green Ranger. I knew from, hi, I'm Matt. That's how he revealed his identity. Anyway, I went on a tangent about that. But as you know, if you read the previous issues, Grace and the Green Ranger started to work more with Zordon during the Altarian War, and it seems that's full on now. Now, this is one of the things I have mixed thoughts on. For the context of this story, I do like this, and setting aside any of the past, I think this opens up potentially interesting stories for the future about both him and Grace working with the team. They're also setting up a potential romance with Aisha, which is interesting just for the fact that I hope it gives Aisha something to do. I've commented on this almost too many times, but I do think the Stone Canyon trio still needs to be fleshed out more, even though Rocky did get a nice moment in one of the last arcs. But I do like this. I really like the interactions between them. I think it opens up possibility for interesting stories, like I said, even possible conflict in the future. I don't mind this as a potential natural next step. My only mixed thoughts are more criticism of the last arc than of this arc, because I think there was a lot of missed opportunity with his character. I think there was some really interesting things laid down about the idea of Green Ranger being a public figure ranger and the others not to mention the parallels between Grace creating her own Green Ranger and Rita creating hers. They did do some stuff with it, obviously, which was interesting, but I think they barely scratched the surface, and I would have liked to have seen more done with that before we got to this point. And maybe there will be down the road. I think with Rita being back, there's definitely some potentially interesting things that could happen with her dynamic with Tommy and maybe her knowing about a new Green Ranger. Who knows? You know, it's too early to judge, but I do think that there was some missed opportunities before we got to this point, even if I don't mind this status quo moment. Then the big stuff of the issue happens when the moon returns and they get a distress signal from the villains who are under attack by something, and they actually go to the moon and find Zed and his crew actually under attack and terrified by some sort of new force. And I feel like one thing people are going to complain about is Zed actually being scared of Rita or scared of anything, because both from the comics universe and Dino Fury, I've seen people get upset about Zed being nerfed and not getting the respect. I can understand that from a certain point of view. I think Zed's put up on too much of a pedestal. I do agree that he needs kind of more of a badass moment. I do like his comic version, and I like his backstory, but I don't feel he's gotten his big badass moment for sure. But I think that I've never thought of Zed as that big of a badass after the events of In Space when we found out he's just working for somebody. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I could see people being upset about that and feeling like Zed didn't really get his chance to shine outside of backstory before Rita comes back, but who knows? I do hope they do a little more with him later, but I wanted to highlight that and that I'm just not as upset as some people might be. But he's afraid of this version of Rita that showed up, and that's kind of the cliffhanger we leave off on, is what they're running from is Rita, who has shown up in this new suit. I don't believe they say it at the end, but she's going by the name of Mistress Vile, because you know her dad is Master Vile. We knew this from a comic book panel that they did at one of the conventions. That's one of my other mixed thoughts, just because I hate the comics trend of revealing their biggest plot details and character returns in press releases and panels. I'm pretty cutthroat about spoilers compared to most people, because I consider something to be just free to talk about as soon as it's out there. But I think it really undercuts a lot of shock value and interesting moments when you release a spoiler and a twist in a press release. If Star Wars was a comic, Darth Vader being Luke's father would have been in a press release at New York Comic Con months before it happened. And that kind of bothers me just on a franchise level. But I do like this idea of Mistress Vile, of Rita coming back. I know she's gotten a lot of focus, and it's funny talking about Rita and Zed because I always have preferred Zed overall. I was never a huge fan of Rita back in the day, but I do find comic Rita to be quite interesting and arguably more interesting to me than comic Zed, and I think this idea of Mistress Vile is definitely an interesting pivot, and I'm excited to see where it goes, both character and story-wise, and I hope it leads to even more deviations from the original timeline. I did see one theory that this could be maybe Dark Ranger Rita. If you remember, they did that Dark Ranger arc where they had a putty clone Rita who is still alive. That could be interesting character-wise, but I hope it doesn't happen, because one thing that does bother me is even when they do deviations in the comics, they seem to always try to go back to this place where they can line things back up to go the way you know they are supposed to go, and I think making this Dark Rita just clears them of like any twists and be like, they can do whatever they want and be like, it wasn't Rita this whole time, it was Peta, her twin sister, and then they can do more familiar things with Rita. And I hope that's not the case, especially because they started with a flashback to sort of drive home the emotional connection between Zordon and Rita, so I hope it's not that. I'm not opposed to Dark Ranger Rita returning. I actually think that was a rather interesting version of the character, but I hope that's not her. But overall, though, I really did like this issue. I think it was a really solid beginning to this arc. It has me really excited to see what happens with Mistress Vile and any potential changes for the future. It has me excited about the new team dynamic. I really liked the art style and the whole vibe of it. I overall like this. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. And right now, I do want to note that we're still in the Season 2 timeline. I don't know if and when we'll ever get to Season 3. I imagine we will, because they're going to want to stick with Mighty Morphin for as long as possible, if not forever. I just wanted to lay this out there that I think it would be cool, because this is Mistress Vile and Master Vile was a villain in Season 3, if Mistress Vile becomes the reason they lose their coins and Zords in this, and we can do our version of the Ninja Quest storyline in here and see some changes with that. I think that would be really cool. But what do you guys think? What do you think at the beginning of this issue? What do you want to see in this new era? Let me know in the comments as always. Until the next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for all my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.